Greetings, YouTube! The Doctor is in. Dr. Urius Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And today we are going to be talking about the next Unearthed Arcana 2025 Arcane subclass, the Arcane Archer. So I've got the current PDF up here right now that has all of the description for the new Arcane Archer. We're going to look at what is currently legal, which is the legacy version of the Arcane Archer. We're going to compare, contrast. We're going to rate them as well. And then we're also going to look at a few feats, some of the newer 2024 feats that go along with them. So a lot to go through, a lot to go over. Stay tuned and don't go anywhere. All right, before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or comment. Don't forget to share this video, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. All right, so here's what I got up here right now. This is the new Arcane Archer, and we're gonna look at the legacy version first, and this at the same time. We're gonna kind of look at each feature, and we're gonna compare and contrast each one of those features and see how they have changed. So you can see how they have changed in real time. All right, so here's the Arcane Archer, and it's okay. It wasn't fantastic. There were a couple of things that really limited this subclass, and it was a subclass of fighter, so you had to be a fighter to get this. There were a few things that were a little bit limited with this, but for the most part, it was pretty okay. So we got features at 3rd, 7th, 10th, 15th, and 18th level, and we got a number of different features. So the first feature we're getting at 3rd level is called Arcane Archer Lore. You learn magical theory or some of the secrets of nature typical for practitioners of this elven martial tradition. Now, you didn't necessarily need to be an elf to be an Arcane Archer. That was not a prerequisite for this. So with this Arcane Archer Lore, you chose to gain a proficiency in either Arcana or Nature, and you chose to learn either the Prestidigitation or the Druidcraft cantrip. Now, this carried over, so let's take a look at what it looks like in the Unearthed Arcana here. So here it is, Arcane Archer Lore. So, first off, you know either the Druidcraft or the Prestidigitation cantrip, and Intelligence is your spellcasting ability. So that didn't change. Secondly, you gain proficiency in Arcana and Nature. So you got both. If you already have one of these proficiencies, you instead gain proficiency in a different skill of your choice, or with 2 other skills if you have both. So already we're getting a bump. So here it is right here. Arcane Archer Lore gave you Arcana or Nature, and Arcane Archer Lore from the Unearthed Arcana gave you both, and also gave you maybe proficiency in something else if you already had proficiency in these. So just to kind of start out and give a baseline, let's give my rating for this. I'm going to give this one a B-, and there's a real reason that I'm giving it, and it's going to be in the next thing, which is the Arcane Shot. So we're giving this a B-. Is the addition of these extra skills going to bump it up to a B? Not really. Not really. All right, so the Arcane Shot from the Legacy version. So at 3rd level also, you learn to unleash special magical effects with some of your shots. Now, I believe that all of these were tied to bows. Yeah, so it is once per turn when you fire an arrow from a short bow or a long bow. So that was the first limit. No crossbows, no hand crossbows, no light crossbows, no heavy crossbows, only short bows and long bows. So once per turn, when you fire an arrow from a short bow or long bow as part of an attack action, you can apply one of your Arcane Shot options, and there are a bunch of different options. You decide to use the option when the arrow hits the creature. That was good. So you didn't do it when you shot it, you did it when it hit. unless the option doesn't involve an attack roll. So some of these involve a saving throw. So you have 2 uses of this ability, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a short or long rest. So that's the problem. You get 2 options, and you can only use it twice per short rest, and it's limited to a longbow or a short bow. So that kind of made it untenable. I didn't really like that part of it. You ran out of these very, very fast. Very, very fast. So the last sentence is you gain an additional arcane shot option, not an extra use of it, but an extra option of your choice when you reach 7, 10, 15, and 18. Each option also improves when you become an 18th level fighter, which there was a thing in here. So let's look at the arcane shot in the new Unearthed Arcana. So first off, you learn 2 arcane shot options of your choice from the arcane shot options section later in the subclasses description. Okay, so that's the same. You learn an additional arcane shot option of your choice when you reach 7, 10, 15, and 18. Okay, that's the same. Each time you learn a new arcane shot option, you can also replace one option you know with a different one. So that's new. That was not in the previous description in the legacy version. So that's new, and that's a good thing. Is that enough to give it a bump from B- to B? No, not really. So then they go through another little section of this. Once per turn, when you make a ranged attack using a weapon with the ammunition property, that is different than a longbow and a short bow. There's a lot of different options that have the ammunition property, which includes crossbows. So very important, and that's really good. And I believe, and I've got this up here right now, so we've got heavy crossbow has ammunition, we've got hand crossbow has ammunition, longbow has ammunition, musket and pistol both have ammunition. That's pretty cool. So you could have arcane shots with firearms. And then if we go here to the simple weapons, we have sling has ammunition, short bow is ammunition, and light crossbow is ammunition. And that is basically it. So that now just increased what we can use. And I point those out because there are new weapon masteries that come out. And this is a fighter, so they get a ton of weapon masteries. So you can apply one of your arcane shot options to that attack once per turn when you make a ranged attack using a weapon with the ammunition property. You decide to use the option when you hit, so they didn't change that, and deal damage to it unless the option doesn't involve an attack roll. All right. You can use this feature a number of times per day equal to your intelligence modifier. You regain all expended uses when you finish a short rest. So your intelligence modifier affects those 2 cantrips, which isn't that a big a deal, but it does affect this. So this at this point, this pretty much forces you as a fighter to take intelligence as your secondary highest score. So dex should be first, then intelligence, which means you're probably going to have an 18 to 20 dex with the full build, and then you're going to have a 14 to 16 intelligence with the full build, meaning at later levels, you are going to have 3 uses per short rest instead of 2. So that's a 50% increase. So is all of that enough to raise this from a B- to a B? Yes. That one I would say at least puts this up to a B. And then you got an arcane shot die, which actually is pretty good. So this is a new mechanic on this. Is that enough to move it from a B to a B+? No. But let's look at the different arcane shot options that are available. So then at 7th level, with the Arcane Archer, we got Magic Arrow. So at 7th level, you gain the ability to infuse arrows with a magic. Whenever you fire a non-magical arrow from a short bow or long bow, again, you're tied only to those things in the legacy, You can make it magical for the purposes of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. And guess what? By 7th level, you should have had a magic weapon anyway. And if you didn't, to me, you're playing in the wrong game. So that was a worthless feature. That was an absolutely worthless feature. So hopefully they change that and they realize by 7th level, your character should have a magic bow. And it looks like they did. So at 7th level, instead of getting that magic arrow, you got a curving shot. You learn how to direct an errant shot towards a new target. If you make an attack roll with a weapon with the ammunition property and miss, as a bonus action immediately after the attack, you can make an extra attack with the same weapon against a different target that you can see that is within the weapon's long range and that isn't behind total cover. The extra attack doesn't require ammunition. So basically the shot curves and you have a chance of hitting something else, which is massive. So that's pretty good. Do I think that is enough to raise it to a B+? No. We're getting there. We're getting close, but not quite. And so what did we get at? So we also got curving shot at 7th level. So they basically took the magic arrow away, but I think they realized that you're going to have a magic bow anyway. The curving shot option in the legacy is you learn how to direct an arrow toward a new target. When you make an attack roll with a magic arrow and miss, you can use a bonus action to re-roll the attack against a different target within 60 feet of the original target. So this is 60 feet, and this is within long range. And you make an extra attack, which is basically a re-roll. So it's going to be all the same stuff. Now you also got, did we get anything else at 7th level? And the answer is no. However, at 7th level with this, we got ever ready shot. When you roll initiative and had no uses of arcane shot left, you regain 1 expended use of it. And it doesn't say that that this is limited per day. It just says when you roll initiative and have no uses of arcane shot left, you regain 1 expended use. And then this is in the legacy version, but it's in the legacy version at 15th level. So you regain the use if you have no uses at 15th level. This is now at 7th level. So essentially, that gives you 4 uses per short rest, essentially, if you're going to have 2 combats. So if you've got an intelligence bonus of 16, which gives you 3 uses per short rest, and you use all those, and then you get in another combat and you roll initiative, you got 1 more use. So there's 4 uses. Is that enough to make it a B+? We're so close. We're so close. We're probably not going to get into B+ territory until we go through our arcane shot options. So was there anything at 10th level? So no. We went from 7th level here to the ever ready shot at 15th level. And so there's nothing there. Now, the arcane shot die is a D6. There it is right there. Your arcane shot die is a D6. However, at 10th level, it becomes a D8. At 15th level, it becomes a D12. And at 18th level, at 15th level, it becomes a D10. And at 18th level, it becomes a D12. So it goes from an average of 3.5 damage to 4.5 damage to 5.5 damage to 6.5 damage. So that actually is not too bad. It's basically extra damage for most of your arcane shots. So let's go through all the arcane shots. And this was not something that was really in the legacy version. So here, the last thing we got was ever ready shot, and that was it. With this one, we do get a bump. We get 3 bumps in the damage die. All right, so arcane shot options. Banishing shot is the first one. So let's take a look at the banishing shot for the legacy version. You use abjuration magic to try to temporarily banish your target to a harmless location in the Feywild. The creature hit by the arrow must also succeed on a charisma set, which is 8, plus your proficiency bonus, plus your intelligence modifier. Another reason to have a high intelligence. So charisma save, or it's banished. So it sounds like it goes to the Feywild. While banished in this way, the target speed is 0, and it is incapacitated. So it's not doing anything. At the end of its next turn, the target reappears in the space it vacated or in the nearest unoccupied space. So what that means is that it's basically gone. You hit it, and at the end of its turn, it comes back, so it loses a turn. That's basically all this did, is make it lose a turn. And at 18th level, you did 2d6 force damage when you hit it. Now, what is the new banishing shot? So your magic temporarily sequesters your target in a harmless demi-plane, so it's not going to the Feywild, it's just going to this demi-plane. The creature you hit takes additional psychic damage equal to 1 of your arcane shot dice, so d6, d8, d10, d12. So that's already better. And must succeed on a charisma saving throw or be banished. When it's banished, it's incapacitated, has a speed 0. At the end of its next turn, the target reappears in a space it left, or if that space is occupied in the nearest occupied space. So that's the same. Banishing shot got a little bit better because it's extra die of damage right away. And it's psychic damage too. That's a big deal too, because very, very little is resistant to psychic damage. Okay, the next one is Beguiling Shot. And we won't reassess the grade until after we go through all of these. So, Beguiling Shot. So what did Beguiling Shot look like in Legacy? Your enchantment magic. So each is a different school of magic, essentially. So your enchantment magic causes this arrow to temporarily beguile its target. The creature hit by the arrow takes an extra 2d6 psychic damage, and choose one of your allies within 30 feet of the target. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw, or it is charmed by the chosen ally, which means it basically can't attack it, and then your ally gets advantage on like persuasion checks until the start of your next turn. So that for a whole round. The effect ends early if the chosen ally attacks the charmed target, deals damage to it, or forces it to make a saving throw. If the chosen ally does, not everybody else. And then this 2d6 damage went to 4d6 at level 18. Now, what is it now? Same kind of magic causes the ammunition to temporarily beguile your target. It takes an additional psychic damage die equal to 2 arcane shots, which is equal to what it was, 2d6, but then that gets better, and must succeed on a wisdom saving throw. So this is a wisdom saving throw, and this one is a wisdom saving throw. So those are the same. Or have the charm condition until the start of your next turn, treating either you or one of your allies within 30 feet of the target, your choice. So now you got a choice. Now it's not an ally, it's the target. So that's a big deal. It's not the ally, it's either the ally or you. That is the target of the charm. The charm condition ends early if the charmer, that's you or your ally, attacks the target, deals damage to it, or forces it to make a saving throw. So, and this is until the start of your next turn. So they added a little bit extra, not very much, but a little bit. All right, Bursting Shot is next. So you imbue your arrow with force. This is kind of like evocation from the School of Evocation. The energy detonates after your attack immediately after the arrow hits the creature. The target and all other creatures within 10 feet take 2d6 force damage. So arrow hits, does arrow damage, and then it explodes, and it does 2d6 force damage to everybody within 10 feet. This goes to 4d6 at 18th level. Did that change in the Unearthed Arcana? You imbue your ammunition with explosive force energy immediately after you deal damage to the creature. Your target and each creature within 10 feet originating from the target take force damage equal to 2 rolls. So it's essentially the same, except that arcane shot die goes up. So it's essentially the same. All right, so the next one is Enfeebling Shot. So that one didn't really change. All right, Enfeebling Shot, you weave necromantic magic, and the creature hit by the arrow takes an additional 2d6 necrotic damage. The target must make a Constitution saving throw. I don't like con saves. Most things make those saves. Or the damage dealt by the weapon is halved by its weapon, and its meaning the target's weapon is halved until the start of your next turn. So it's kind of like enfeeblement. And then the damage goes up to 46 at 18. So what does the new one do? The new Enfeebling Shot from Unearthed Arcana is your ammunition saps the target's strength. The creature hit takes additional necrotic damage equal to 2 rolls. And then it's got to make a save, con save, or have the poisoned condition until the start of its next turn. That's a big one. Poisoned condition. And then whenever a target poisoned in this way hits with an attack, it subtracts an amount equal to one of your arcane shot dice from the total damage of that attack. It's only for a turn, but it is the poison condition, and there are several things, if you work this out, particularly with the Summon Undead spell, that will paralyze poisoned targets. So that, remember, I've highlighted that before. Poisoning can be very nasty. And poisoning, just so we understand what that does, we go back up here, and we go to the player's handbook, and we go to the rule definitions, and we'll find poison down here. Here it is, right here, poisoned. You have disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. So it doesn't have the damage anymore. It gives a disability to attack rolls and ability checks. So if it needs to get out of a grapple, it has disadvantage on that. Just saying. That's a big one. We want to go back to that. Okay, so that definitely, I personally think, disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks with the damage and with the poisoned condition is better, because there are several things that ride off of that poison condition than the legacy enfeebling arrow. So I think that is an improvement. All right, the next one we have is grasping shot. And this was kind of a nerf, in my opinion. So the old one is, you strike a target, conjuration magic creates grasping poisonous brambles. So the creature hit by the arrow takes an additional 2d6 poison damage, and its speed is reduced by 10 feet, and it takes 2d6 slashing damage the first time on each turn it moves 1 foot or more without teleporting. The target or any creature that can reach it can use its action to remove the brambles with a successful strength athletics check against your arcane shot DC, which means, and then this lasts for a minute. So, and then the damage goes up to 46 at 18th level, which means for a minute, 10 rounds, every time that thing moves, it takes slashing damage. So, and that's the first time on each turn it moves 1 foot or more without teleporting. This one was nasty because it says turn, and if it moves, it doesn't say how, it just says moves. So you could have individuals in your party do forced movement on this on each turn. And the first time it happens on a turn, it's going to take 2d6 damage. And they can move it away, and if it tries to move forward, it's going to take 2d6 damage on its turn. So that one was really nasty because it lasted for a full minute, and they had to take an action to get all that stuff off. And it wasn't the initial damage that really did it. It was the 10 feet reduction in movement and the 2d6 every time it moved, including forced movement. It was poison damage, so that was an issue. So, grasping shot now. Your ammunition creates clutching brambles around the target. The creature you hit takes additional slashing damage equal to 1 roll of your arcane shot die, not 2, 1, and must succeed on a strength saving throw, which I hate because most things have a massive strength, or have the restrained condition until the start of your next turn. 1 round now. The target or creature within reach of it can take an action to make a strength check against your arcane shot DC, removing the brambles and ending the restrained condition on the target, but it's only for a round. So this, in my opinion, is a nerf. This is not a bump to that particular ability. And then we have piercing shot, and I think this pretty much stayed the same. So transmutation, when you use this option, you don't make an attack roll. Instead, you just shoot the arrow in a line, 1 feet wide, 30 feet long. Before disappearing, the arrow passes harmlessly through objects, ignoring cover. Each creature in that line, so it's basically every living thing in a line, must make a dex save. On a failed save, a creature takes damage as if it were hit by the arrow, which, plus an additional 1d6 piercing damage, which was massive, especially if you had sharpshooter. On a successful save, it took half damage, and then this damage went to 2d6 at 18th level. Now, what is it now? You give your ammunition an ethereal quality. When you use this option, you don't make an attack roll. Okay, that's the same. Ammunition uses forward in a 30-foot line, 1 foot wide. That's the same, originating from you, then vanishes. The line ignores cover as the ammunition phases through solid objects. Each creature in the line must make a dex save. That's the same. On a failed save, the creature takes damage as if it were hit, plus additional piercing damage equal to 2 rolls of your arcane shot. I believe that is exactly the same, and it is not. So it's an extra dice on top of what was in the legacy version. But it doesn't go... At 18th level, it goes up, but it goes up because the dice go up. On a successful save, it takes half damage. So it's a little bit better. It's just a smidgen better. And I believe the last one we've got here is Seeking Shot. Oh, no, we got Shadow Shot too. So we got Seeking Shot and Shadow Shot. And Seeking Shot, so use Divination Magic. And when you use this option, you don't make an attack roll. Instead, choose one creature you have seen in the past minute, and then the arrow flies towards that creature, moving around corners, if necessary, in ignoring 3/4 cover and half cover if the target is within the weapon's range and there is a path large enough for the arrow to travel to the target must make a dexterity saving throw. Otherwise, the arrow disappears after traveling as far as it can. So you don't even need to see it. You just need to have seen it in the last minute. On a failed save, takes damage as if it were hit by the arrow plus an extra d6, and you learn the location. So if it was invisible, like you saw it and then it turned invisible, you could shoot the arrow, it would hit it if it failed its save, and then you would know where it was. It's still invisible, so you would have disadvantage against it, but you would know where it was if you couldn't find it because it was hiding. And then on a successful save, it takes half its damage, and you don't learn the location. And then the damage dice went up. Okay, so let's take a look at the Unearthed Arcana version. Grant your ammunition the ability to seek out a target. When you use this, you don't make an attack roll. Instead, choose a creature that you saw in the last minute. That's the same. Ammunition flies, moving around corners, ignoring cover. That's the same. The target is within your weapon's long range. That's the same. The target must make a dex save. That's the same. Otherwise, the ammunition disappears. On a failed save, the target takes damage as if it were hit, plus additional force damage equal to 2 rolls of your arcane shot die. So this is 2 rolls, and this is 1. So that is a little extra. And you learn the location, and then the saving throw is the same. So that got a little bit... Most of these got a little bit better, except for the grasping shot, because of the issue with forced movement. I think they wanted to nerf that. Okay, Shadow Shot arrow is the same. You weave illusion. The creature hit by the arrow takes an additional 2d6 psychic damage, and it must make a wisdom saving throw or be unable to see anything farther than 5 feet away until the start of your next turn, and then the damage goes up to 4d6 at 18th level. So it can still see things that are adjacent to it. So how did they change this? Your magic occludes your foe's vision with shadows. The creature you hit takes additional psychic damage equal to 1 roll of your arcane shot die. 1. Not an extra 2, but 1. And it must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or have the blinded condition until the end of its next turn. So that was a round of blind, which is it. So it won't be able to see anything adjacent to it either. So if you had a creature adjacent with the legacy version and it danced around, it would get an attack of opportunity. And it would trigger anything else, and it could attack it. It could see it, all that stuff. With this now, that doesn't happen anymore. Okay, so what do I think about the new one? I'm going to give it a B+. I'm going to give it a B+. I think they changed the shots enough. One, they're allowing you to use it with crossbows and slings and firearms. So that's a good thing. And then 2, they're giving you an extra use if you are able to get your intelligence up. And 3, you can use it again pretty early on just by rolling initiative. I think that was is that right off the bat? Or that was Arcane Shot. That was at 7th level, which the old one was 15th level. And finally, 4, a lot of the arcane shots improved. And they improve with the die as well, which is nice. So the last thing that I want to talk about, because we've rated all these, is now that we can use these with crossbows and other weapons, I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about some feats that we can also use with this. But first, we're going to talk about the weapons. So we've got Weapon Masteries. And if you go back here and you look at just classes in general, and we look at the fighter, and we want to look at the feature of Weapon Masteries. So fighting style, you've honed your martial prowess and gain a fighting style feat, and then whenever you gain a level, you can replace it with a different fighting style. And here it is, Weapon Masteries. Your training with weapons allows you to use the mastery properties of 3 kinds of simple or martial weapons of your choice. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can practice weapon drills and change one of those weapon choices. When you reach certain fighter levels, you gain the ability to use mastery properties of more kinds of weapons as shown in the Weapon Mastery column. So let's look at that. So Weapon Mastery column, you start with 3. When you hit 4th level, you get 4. And when you hit 10th level, you get 5. So you get a whole bunch of these. A whole bunch. So the reason I point that out is because these are very powerful items, features. So if we look at the different weapons that have ammunition, so we're going to look at simple ones first. We look at the light crossbow. We have the slow ability. So if you hit a creature with the weapon and deal damage, you can reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. If the creature is hit more than once by a weapon that has this property, the speed reduction doesn't go. So you can reduce the speed by 10 feet. Basically, a fighter with a light crossbow is always going to slow a creature down because they're eventually going to hit it every turn, especially at like 5th level or higher when they're getting multiple attacks. With the sling or with the short bow, we get Vex. If you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to the creature, you have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. So I would hit it with the first attack, and then I would hit it with an arcane shot on the second attack, so I got advantage. And then finally, the sling has slow, and we talked about that already. And then let's talk about the martial weapon. So we got hand crossbow, which is Vex. So we've got heavy crossbow, which is push. Now, this is one of my favorite ones. If you hit a creature with this weapon, you can push it 10 feet straight away from yourself if it is larger. So if you get the grasping vine on it and it's restrained, you can push it away. That's pretty good. Longbow is the slow, the musket is a slow, and the pistol is a Vex. So those are pretty good. Those are very an added extra thing that all fighters are going to get, but it's good to use those with kind of the ranged fighter. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about here are the different feats that go along with this, because there was a big change, and this was an integral part of the Arcane Archer build before, which is this old sharpshooter, which doesn't necessarily work because they got rid of the bonus to damage that was here. So you could subtract 5 to your roll to hit, and you'd add 10 to your damage, but what was happening is everybody was figuring out a way to get advantage, and so that -5 didn't really mean anything. And so now the new sharpshooter gives you a bump to your dex. Your ranged weapon attacks ignore cover, but some of these arcane shots ignore cover anyway. You can fire into melee. Being within 5 feet of an enemy doesn't impose disadvantage, and then you do have long shots. So attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage on your attacks. So that's okay, but it's definitely not sharpshooter. So a couple of the other feats that I think are important for some of these builds now, particularly because the new Arcane Archer uses anything that uses ammunition, Crossbow Expert is definitely one of these you need to start thinking about now. So you get a bump to your dex. That's great. You ignore the loading. So you can take a heavy crossbow and fire it at will. You don't have to hit the loading. Firing into melee, fine. Being within 5 feet doesn't impose disadvantage. Dual wielding. So if you've got hand crossbows, which have the light property, you can make an extra attack, and you get a bump to your damage. So that's pretty good. And there's a bunch of builds for crossbow expert. And then finally, and this one kind of, in my opinion, got a little bit of a nerf. It was Mage Slayer. So the old Mage Slayer, when your creature is within 5 feet of you cast a spell, you can use your reaction to make a melee attack against it. Second one is when you damage a creature that is concentrating on a spell, the creature has disadvantage on the saving throw it makes to maintain its concentration. And then you have advantage on saving throws against spells cast by creatures within 5 feet of you. Now, the new one is you got a bump to strength or dex. When you damage a creature that is concentrating, it has disadvantage on the saving throw it makes to maintain concentration. So that's the same as the middle bullet. And then if you fail an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma saving throw, you can cause yourself to succeed instead. Once you use this benefit, you cannot use it again until you finish a short or long rest, which is massive. That changed this last bullet here, because this is, you don't have to be 5 feet. So that was a bump, but you got rid of when a creature within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction. That's gone, but I guess that's okay. So Mage Slayer is definitely a feat to think about now that it gives a bump. And Crossbow Expert also gives a bump, so that's another one to think about as well. And just to reiterate, I think Crossbow Expert, let's look at Crossbow Expert here. I don't think there is a Gun Expert. So you only ignore the loading property of hand crossbows, heavy crossbows, and light crossbows. So not bad. If you're playing with firearms, there's not really a firearm feat here, but those are the things you can do. All right. So all in all, I think this is it's an improvement because you're getting more, but it's only a slight improvement. All right, that is what I got for everybody. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody